All right, everybody, welcome to our August Lightning Talks. We are recording this session, so we'll get going right now. Guys are all familiar with this slide at this point. Ground rules, our presenter is going to talk for roughly 5 minutes, maybe go over a little bit. We're not going to really have time for questions during their presentation, but we'll create a thread in the Lightning Talk Google chat space. And if you need to be added, please just reach out to me in Google Chat and I'll add you on the fly. And if you have questions and comments or compliments on the particular Lightning Talk, go ahead and post them there. And the presenter will address the comments after their presentation concludes. So for an overview, as I put in Google Chat earlier today, we've got Tito presenting, followed by Diane, and then Ed, and then Carolyn. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Tito's going to start sharing his, and he'll start with his talk.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jeff. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. All right, so hello, everybody. My name is Tito, and today I'm going to be talking about the content security policy and how to define it. So I want you all to pretend that it's 2014 and that you're a Twitter user that comes across this tweet here, as you can see on your screen. You notice that you somehow reposted this tweet automatically, and you notice that close to 60,000 other people also did as well. So what happened? So basically, Twitter was vulnerable to a cross-site scripting attack. So what is cross-site scripting? Cross-site scripting is basically just a type of security vulnerability in a system that allows an attacker to inject malicious scripts into pages that users are exposed to or they're able to see. Possible consequences of this attack is like data theft, website defacement, and self-replicating scripts, all of which can disrupt the user's experience on the application. So what is the solution to this? Well, you can beef up security by a lot. And there's many different ways to protect yourself from cross-site security, cross-site scripting. But what I want to focus on today is a more modern approach that can offer protection to your application and to your users. And this approach is the content security policy. So what is it? It's a feature that all modern web browsers support to allow one to specify the resources that can be loaded on the browser. This enhances security and protection from attacks such as cross-site scripting. So currently there's 3 levels or versions of of the content security policy, and it was developed by the World Wide Web Consortium, or W3C, which is just an international organization that sets the standards of the web. The latest version, level 3, is currently the standard, and it became so as soon as W3C released it. So these are just some examples of resources that the content security policy has directives for. So as you can see, there are directives for JavaScript, CSS, images, fonts, videos, and many, many other types of resources. So how does the content security policy look like? Well, the CSP is just basically a set of directives or rules that that can be found in the response headers of a page. And what does a directive look like? So a directive, again, is just a rule, and the content security policy can be made up one or more or multiple directives. And each directive ends with a semicolon that have multiple of them, and you can have many sources specified in each directive. As you can see in the example, we can have the style src, and you can pass in each source in there, and then you can have multiple by just adding semicolons to separate them out. So these are some examples of the sources that you can specify to be inside a directive. So one can specify specific URLs, protocols, specific domains, and allowing inline. But let me ask you this. What if you wanted to whitelist specific inline styles or scripts, but you want to blacklist everything else that's inline? So is there a way to do this? And there is. So there's something called nonces. So you can use a nonce to do this. So a nonce is just a randomly generated token that is only to be used once. And this token gets generated by the server every time a request is made. So this nonce value is random, and it's basically used to whitelist any inline scripts or styles for the content security policy to allow it to be loaded on the browser. So when this token gets generated, It basically, we're updating all our scripts, our inline scripts and styles that we want to whitelist. And we also update the content security policy to whitelist any inline scripts or styles with that value. So, and again, I'm mentioning styles, but this primarily applies to inline scripts. So these are some examples of items that the content security policy can restrict. It's not just limited to these items though. There are about like more than 23 different types of directives that one can use to restrict fonts, objects, videos, etc. So now time for a demo. So I created a very simple blog app to show you the content security policy in action. So in this app, users can write HTML code inside this content field when they're creating a new blog. And whatever is inside that content field will be displayed as HTML. So the issue is that somebody can add a script such as this example. And if the content security policy is not properly defined or as restrictive, it will basically run this script. So let's take a look at how the content security policy is currently defined at this moment. So you can find the content security policy by inspecting the page and looking at the response headers. As you can see, I blew it up a little bit so you can see a little bit. The script SRC is allowing for anything coming from the code base itself and anything coming from the HTTPS protocol. And for inline styling, I'm allowing anything, sorry, for style SRC, I'm allowing anything to come from the code base or anything that is inline. So right now, the content security policy is not that restrictive at all, and it should allow the script and the inline styling to execute. So if you look at the next page, if you refresh the page, basically the script that was in the content field for that blog that I created gets executed because the content security policy is not restricting it whatsoever. As you can also see that hello world also has inline styling, and that's also not being restricted at all. So now let's look at strengthening the content security policy to avoid this from happening. So these are the updated directives. So as you can see, the directives have become slightly stricter. So we're only allowing anything coming from the code base for the script SRC and for the style SRC directives. So this means that for at least for the script SRC, before we had anything coming from the code base and anything coming from an HTTPS protocol, but now it's just restricted to the code base. And for the style SRC, we have anything coming from the code base, but nothing that is inline anymore. So let's see the effect of this. So if we refresh the page, we're no longer getting that alert that the script was executing. And we no longer get that inline styling that the hello world had previously. So basically the script is just blocking these from loading and executing. And now we can take a look at the logs. So if you wanted to see specifically what gets blocked, if you look at your console, you get a small brief description of what exactly got blocked and by what policy it is being blocked by. So the main takeaway of the content security policy is that it's just another it's a modern approach to protecting your application from cross-site scripting and similar attacks. And this is just a little sneak peek on how it works. But if there's anything I want you to take away from this is that I want you to ask yourselves, is my application as secure as it can be? And how can the content security policy help with that? And that's it. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tito. That was awesome. That was great. Good learning there. Things for us to keep in mind moving forward when building sites. Next up, we have Diane.
Hello. Let me start sharing my screen. Hello, good? Oh, wait, I have to press share. Good?
Yes.
All right.
Good.
Thank you. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Diane Dean, and I'm going to talk about a Refit Library for .NET. Oops. Yeah. What is Refit? Refit is an automatic, type-safe REST library for .NET Core, Xamarin, and .NET. It's heavily inspired by Square's Retrofit library, so this might be familiar to you if you've used that library. And it simply turns your REST API into a live interface. Let me show you what I mean by that. And I'm going to do that by doing a before and after using Refit. So say you have an API, user's API endpoint, and you want to get a user object from your API. You would use HTTP client. And to do that, first you define your HTTP client. You set the base address, obviously. You may set up some request headers to it. And then you would call get async from your HTTP client, and you pass it the user's endpoint and the user ID that, that you have to get the user object. And then you get back the HTTP response message, and you have to deserialize that to get the user object back. Here's another example for a post version of that. Say you want to do an add user. Here's a user, for example, that you have a new user. You would serialize that object first to a JSON, and then you would call post async to your HTTP client. Again, you pass the user's endpoint, and you pass that JSON content as well. And similarly, you deserialize the response to get a user object back. This is what it would look like if you use Refit. Basically, what Refit is a wrapper to HTTP client, and it really just simplifies and makes it less code for you. So what that looks like is, first, you define an interface for your endpoints. What I have here is an iUsers API interface. I defined two functions, get user and add user, with the right parameters, int user ID and user object. I pass it a user object, not even like a JSON or like a string. So I pass it the right data type that I have. I decorate it with the get and post attributes, and then I define the endpoints from on that attribute. So say for get, I have the user's endpoint, and then I pass the user ID parameter. And then for post, it's also the same endpoint, but it's post. And what you have to do is really just create an instance of the interface and call those functions that you defined. So for Refit, here's how you would create an instance of that interface. You call REST service.for, you pass that interface, and then you give it the base address. In the next couple slides, I'll show you how you can do this via the HTTP client factory for dependency injection, but here's just a simple version of it. So again, create an instance of that interface, and you just call that function, just like any function, and you pass it the user ID int, and you get back a user object. That's it. Notice that I didn't have to do any deserialization to the object to get the object. And here's the add user example. Say I have that new user object, and I simply just pass in the user object to the add user function, and then I get back the user object. That's it. Very simple and clean. And as I've mentioned, here's how you would register that via HTTP client factory on your startup class. You just call add refit client, and then the interface that you created, and here's how you would configure HTTP client for the base address. So that's it. Why use Refit? Again, it's less code, it's type safe, it takes care of serialization and deserialization of your data, and just one of its features that I didn't even show today, it has built-in poly integration for resilience of your page, of your HTTP calls. That's it. So check out Refit by Reactive UI. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. That was awesome. All right, up next, we have Ed.
Stop share. Figure that. Try to stop share. Sorry. Oh, finally found it. Okay.
All right. Okay, so my name is Ed McDonald, as Jeff said. I'm going to give a talk on mermaid diagrams. So first of all, what is mermaid diagrams? Well, here's a quick link where you can get a lot more detail, but in short, they are diagrams that you can create as text and embed them in Markdown. It's supported by a lot of tools. It's implemented via JavaScript, so it's easy to embed, but the big names of tools that support it that I'm aware of are Obsidian, which is the note-taking app I'm using to present this. My last lightning talk was on Obsidian, so feel free to go back and watch it. Highly recommend using it. GitHub also supports it, and Jekyll supports it. So why would you use them? Well, my big rationale for using it is your diagrams are written as text, which means they can be version controlled, and they can live where your code already lives. So your GitHub READMEs, if I said GitLab earlier, I meant GitHub, although I think GitLab also supports it. But your READMEs in your code, you can embed diagrams. So let's dig in. So here I have a diagram that's called a mind map. if I look at this, this is the source of this diagram. So I have a root node and a lot of different child nodes. Here we say we want a mermaid diagram. Here we say the type of diagram it is. That's common to all mermaid diagrams. Then the syntax for each diagram is very specific to the diagram. You can see how easy it is to change. Uh-oh, it broke. Of course it did. That's the risk of doing live demos. Okay, so there, I changed the diagram, very easy. And the problem there was spaces matter, and I had accidentally inserted a tab. So that's why, but these rules are all in the syntax. If you go to this, you can read the different syntax for the different diagrams. So I remove it, it's instantly gone. So this is a mind map diagram, and it's a quick overview of the mermaid in the middle and the different types of diagrams I'm going to talk about. All right, we covered mind maps. Next up, Git graphs. So this is very useful to engineers. It's very nice to talk about different Git workflows. Here we see that we have a main branch in Git with feature 1 and feature 2. We can see that feature 1 has been merged and feature 2 is on the way. It generates all these hashes for you. So those are just dummy hashes, but we can look at the code. Again, syntax is different for every type of diagram. Here we see how easy it is to generate that graph. These are almost, if not exactly, they're analogous to the commands you would type in Git to end up with a Git graph that looked something like this. So super easy to create this diagram. All right, next up, Gantt charts. For the managers out there, we can have Gantt charts. You can embed them in your, right along next to the code. So this is an overview. I've tried to make all these slides relevant to the actual talk I'm giving. So this is fictitious, but this is how I prepared for this talk. I said 4 slides here. I lied. I actually have a 5th slide, so that's a little bit inaccurate. But you can see that I prepared all the slides in parallel because I'm a super multitasker. Then I proofread all the slides in parallel, and then I added the navigation links in parallel. Then I practiced the presentation, and you can see that the active task right now is giving the presentation. So we're right in the middle of that. Enjoy. I'll mark that as done when I'm done here. Oh, yes. I'll take a look at the source. This syntax is actually pretty complicated. I'm not going to go through everything, but you can see here that I have a section for every one of these different, it auto colors the sections for you. So you can see each of those big rows is a section. And then I have the tasks. You could read the documentation for this. Their rules for how to parse this are actually pretty complicated, way too much detail to go into here. But still, we generated a Gantt chart, and it took just a little bit more of a page of a lot of zoomed in text. So that's pretty convenient. Next up, class diagrams. Okay, so again, we're talking about the different types of diagrams I'm presenting. You see them down at the bottom. I put them in a class hierarchy of diagram. All these diagrams have a text representation, and they all have a render method. I've broken them down into engineer diagrams, artist diagrams, and manager diagrams. So let's take a look at the code here. This one's super concise. If you say, I want a class that extends a class that extends another class, it creates both of these in the diagram the instant that you say they exist. So you don't have to say, you don't have to predefine them. You say, I want a diagram and I want an engineering diagram to extend it. Oh, that same diagram, artist diagram also extends it, super easy. Here we can say diagram has a property called text representation. It has a method called render. And I think it's smart enough that if you have parentheses here, that it puts it on a separate below this line. So it separates attributes from methods. And yep, that's it for class diagrams. So, sorry, my timer's going off. Sequence diagrams. So here I created a quick sequence diagram that is me presenting this to you, the audience. So we see Ed presents the mermaid diagram to the audience. You guys hopefully give me appreciation, and then I say thank you. So let's take a quick look at the code here. Sorry about that. So sequence diagram. This one is just 3 lines. Not much to say there. Super simple. And that is everything. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Awesome. Very cool. That I've got a lot of ideas swimming around my head, and probably the people that work on projects that I'm overseeing are probably worried now that I'm going to ask for different diagrams in our repositories. But I like the being able to version control it. Awesome. All right. So our final presenter is Carolyn. She's going to present how to spice up your sprint retros. So Carolyn, take it away.
All right. Let me get going. Okay, thank you. So this is using Padlet for sprint retrospectives. It's a tool that I've used in a previous life and thought it would be a great addition to our sprint retros. Padlet is, according to the Padlet people, software people use to make and share content with others. So it's got a lot of uses in the educational world, but it also has a lot of uses when people are just trying to get together and share information. And in this case, specifically for sprint retros, trying to get people involved and participating in a way that's quick and easy. So I'll show you the Padlet in just a second, but they are basically a digital whiteboard, super easy to create and really flexible to change backgrounds, headers, layouts. I can put one together in 5 or 10 minutes. And most of that is thinking about what I want it to say. From a user perspective, it is extremely easy to use. Team members don't need any registration. They're going to click on a link or a QR code so you can get people in really quick. They can take it for, they can use mobile devices as well as a laptop or PC. You have team members comment, vote, organize the information, and then you download the results. From a price perspective, it is free to use. You can have 3 Padlets at a time. I basically just rework the same one each week, so it doesn't take a lot of effort, and I never run into that problem. As many users as you want can log in. And then there is a 20 megabyte upload limit, but since we don't do a lot of graphics, it is, we've never run into a problem with that. So let's take a look at what it looks like. This would be kind of the opening view. This is the summer retro. So we're talking about things about summer, what's good about summer, summer sunshine, what is not so good about summer, summer storms, and then summer shade would be things that could make summer better. So when a user logs in, this is exactly what they're going to see. I'll show you from the administrative side, but other than the additional kind of what am I trying to say? Settings, you're not going to see much else. So I've gone ahead and pre-populated this. I have a friend in the audience that's also going to help me today, but we'll basically just go in and add a new item. So I can add it here, or I can add it here. So, oh, thank you. Somebody really cool has a summer birthday. So you can go in, add something. I can change the color. I can write, I don't know, cold drinks on a hot day is my feedback for things I like about summer, and that'll populate here automatically. So what the team does is go through and add their comments all the way. Jeez. Go through and add comments as they go. You can go in, if you make a mistake, you can edit your post. So if you meant to say icy cold drinks on a hot day, you can go and do that and update. You can change the color. You can have people comment anonymously. You can have them comment and have everything attributed to them. So a lot of flexibility. We'll go through and take 5-10 minutes, whatever it takes, to put the comments in, and then I'll ask people to go in and vote. And so this is one of the things we've tweaked for retro. We do thumbs up for things that you agree with or like, and then thumbs down for things either you disagree with, or maybe things that you maybe things you just want to talk about. There isn't really a talk about kind of button. So I could go through and do my thumbs up. As a user, they'll show here and I can vote. So my friend is voting in the audience. We can agree on those, and then thumbs down, and then we'll talk through the retro. I see a lot of people said yes for this, yes for this. When we get to afternoon thunderstorms, somebody said no. What do you want to talk about as it relates to afternoon thunderstorms? And then you can say whatever you want to say. Then the other thing we do is use this last column for action items. So let's say shorter work days, and I'll just pull that over into shorter work days. And that's one of the sprint action items we want to work on. I can go in and edit it. Dr. Joel. And then that becomes our retro action items for the next time around. And you can drag things if you think they're in the wrong space. You can group items together if a lot of people are saying the same thing. So there's a lot of flexibility with the tool, but it doesn't take a lot of effort. When we're done, essentially, I just go over here and I can share it in a bunch of different ways. I can export it as an image, which is what we do, and just cut and paste it into our Confluence page for the retro. But you can also make it a PDF, or if you had a lot of comments, you could put it in an Excel spreadsheet or continue it to collect them. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use it. Just going to show you a couple of the different examples. This template is out of the box. Just click on it as we go to settings. It's just one of the wallpapers that they have. So it's super easy to do that. This week we did our Olympics retrospective, and this was a flag that I found on the internet and just uploaded as a background picture along with the little symbol up here. So different categories. You can see this one has a little bit of a different color scheme. This is a background. This was our farmer retrospective, and it had took a basic image that was in the library and then added different components. So I try to sparkle them up a little bit. This was the donut retrospective. But you can also do kind of the usual retrospective, same of, more of, less of, or rosebud thorns, but just add kind of a cool background and make it a little easier for people to communicate. So overall, it's a great tool to use and collect information. It's really easy for the administrator to use, and it's super easy for people to get in and provide comments. So I think it makes it easier to provide and get good feedback as we're going through our retrospectives. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Carolyn. That was great. Yeah, as somebody on Carolyn's one of Carolyn's projects, I can attest that our retros are very good. They're really engaged. Everybody in the team seems to enjoy going through, and Carolyn does a great job of finding sort of these different themes and getting us thinking in different ways in the retro, which provides really good comments. So thanks to everybody that presented today. Tito, Diane, Ed, Carolyn, all good presentations. As a reminder, we have our Lightning Talks Google Doc out there. You can find pretty easily if you're interested in giving a talk upcoming. Just go towards the bottom there where we have a table that you can put your name on with a topic, or if you're not really sure what your topic might be, just put your name at the bottom table and we'll help you find a topic if you want to do one. So thanks for participating. I hope everybody enjoyed this. And if you have comments, questions, compliments, please find the Lightning Talks chat space in Google Chat and put them there. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your Friday.
Thanks, Jeff. Cheers.